Our first camping trip in last April was to Kirk Creek Campground, situated off Highway 1, south of Santa Lucia, California. Highway 1 is closed for repairs just a mile north of the campground after recent landslides. Coming from Northern California, we had to take a long detour to get there. This is truly one of the most unique campgrounds we've visited so far. Located at the edge of the cliff over the Pacific Ocean, our campsite was just a few feet away from the edge and the surf below. Arriving in the late afternoon, we set up our tent and enjoyed a meal overlooking the ocean in the fading light. Bright morning with fresh green grass and invigorating ocean air was uplifting. A hike along the empty Highway 1 without any traffic was peaceful and a stark reminder of how fragile our aging road infrastructure really is. We plan to hike into the nearby hills, but heavy tick infestation curtailed that idea. Returning, we enjoyed close proximity to the ocean, practiced yoga, and planned to stay another night. Strong gusty winds from the ocean arrived in mid-afternoon, challenging our tent structure and stakes. The campground host informed us that the overnight forecast predicted even stronger winds. After assessing the situation, we decided to pack up and head home. Despite this setback, we felt okay about leaving early and enjoyed our drive back. Was that a successful trip, we wondered? Our next camping trip in late May brought us to Salt Point Campground off Highway 1 on Sonoma Coast. We were incredibly lucky to witness the most spectacular explosion of wildflowers along the Rocky Coast Trail we've ever seen. A couple of rainy days before our arrival, and sunny warmth unleashed nature's bloom in full force. We were spellbound and overwhelmed at every turn on our 5-mile hike along the coast that day. Returning home on the secondary roads, redwoods, oak groves, and rolling hills of Sonoma County was another delightful surprise on this trip. This was a very successful trip, we thought. A few weeks later, we returned to Sonoma Coast to camp at Gualala Campground with its unique bay laurel trees and proximity to the ocean. A 6-mile out-and-back trail along the ocean starts from the campground, making this spot a great stopover on the way to other destinations. The next morning, we drove along the coast on Highway 1 to Highway 101 North towards Humboldt-Redwood State Park, our favorite destination for walking among redwoods. Tasting wild blackberries was an exciting and delicious experience as well. We felt happy with our camping trip. But was this trip the best this year? Yet another camping trip brought us back to Salt Point Campground in early September. This time we stayed in woodland section of the campground, up in the hills. Walking in local hills on cool mornings felt like a sanctuary after 2 months of oppressive heat in Central California. The trail, devoid of other people, allowed us to connect with nature more completely. On our return to the campground, we decided to walk along the same coastal trail we had hiked in late May. As we approached the ocean, the weather began changing as the cold front from the north met warm southern winds. Fog and overcast skies descended on the trail. The temperatures remained warm as we continued towards shallower cliffs with views of the surf. We found a rock to have our snack and enjoy views, sounds, and smells of the ocean. We spent a long time there in quiet contemplation without noticing time passing by. Upon returning to our campsite, we found noisy neighbors who loudly broadcasted their petty arguments for all nearby campers to hear. To preserve our day's enjoyment, we've canceled our remaining stay and left. At that moment, we weren't sure if that was a successful trip. Our most recent camping trip was closer to home in Sierra Nevada mountains at Caples Lake near Macolmney Wilderness. The hike along Caples Lake led us to Immigrant Lake at 9,000 feet elevation. At that altitude, wildflowers were blooming, even in September. Along the way, we found many wonders, including wild red currants and a large mushroom that resembled porcini mushrooms. We collected some wild currants and made sweet preserves at home to share during holiday time with family. At our spacious campground next to the rock wall, we enjoyed homemade food inside our clam shelter and slept comfortably in our Sienna vehicle. This short camping trip was spontaneous but immensely enjoyable. Was it our best trip? Finally, at the end of September, we embarked on yet another adventure, visiting my brother-in-law during foliage season in New Hampshire. While this wasn't strictly speaking a camping trip, we stayed in a rustic cottage built in 1910 that is lovingly maintained. Our plan was to hike every day, as we do on camping trips. Visiting my wife's brother was important to us. We enjoyed our time with him immensely. The foliage was spectacular this year. Having been in New Hampshire many times before during foliage season, always calls us back. The weather was perfect for climbing Mount Adams, one of White Mountain's hardest climbs, allowing us finally to complete it successfully. By all metrics, this was indeed a very successful trip, but was it our best? Reflecting on all our camping and hiking adventures this year revealed that every trip had its moments of excitement, novelty, joy from revisiting places, unexpected discoveries, or revelations. Each trip was unique. However, which one brought us most precious spellbinding memories? These almost transcendental moments cannot be pre-planned or guaranteed by revisiting. They can only be experienced at just right place or time with an open mind. So which trip had most magical moments this year? Both my wife and I felt that sitting on rocks at Salt Point Shore on a gloomy, foggy day in early September while watching and listening to surf became that most precious moment for us this year. Will we find more moments like this again? We hope so, and that's why we will continue camping and hiking as long as possible. Tell us about your best camping moments. See you next time. Cheers.